So the big story that is all over the sports world today is the fact that Charles Oakley lost his ever-loving mind at a Knicks game last night behind one of the benches. But he was courtside. He was a few rows off the court, I should say. And he has been highly critical of the Knicks organization. And the backstory is apparently he's been really critical of James Dolan. Who's the owner of the Knicks. One of the reasons why he's been critical of James Dolan is because the Knicks are celebrating some 70th anniversary, and he has not been included in many of the festivities. So that's got him all kinds of worked up and offended. But according to reports, he was a few rows behind James Dolan, and he was letting James Dolan have it, like heckling him. And that's when he was approached by security and asked to stop. Now, the video picks up, for anybody who's seen the video, it picks up with him shoving a security guard. Putting a finger on his head is what I saw was the first physical confrontation.
And I don't even think that guy that he puts the finger on is a security guard. I think that's later on. It's a security guard. That guy, I think, was just a team official that came over and tried to calm things down.
If you see the video, it's pretty fascinating because there's a lot going on. There's a lot of different people talking to Oakley. You almost have to watch it and watch the individuals repeatedly and watch the individuals, including James Dolan trying to ignore it 3-4 rows ahead of him. And eventually he stands up and turns around, and Charles Oakley gets physically dragged out of his seat and into the tunnel at Madison Square Garden, and he got arrested on 3 assault counts. And it all has everything to do with the way it went down with security. Oakley as a player was a thug. Okay, Oakley as a player used to get into fights and altercations all the time. It's nothing new.
Right.
It's interesting watching Oakley now because, I wonder how much of that mentality he brought into this confrontation last night.
Well, I'm sure the words were very unsavory what he was shouting towards James Dolan.
Well, guys, he does deny all that, by the way, just to get his side out there. He denies, he says he was there 4 minutes, he didn't say anything to James Dolan, he swears on his mother. So that's Oakley's side of it.
The question is, then why was he removed?
That's why he was so upset. He kept saying, guys, why am I being removed? Why am I being asked to leave? And that's when things, obviously got heated. Voices got raised, people got pushed, and fingers got shoved in people's faces. And then someone got arrested.
He didn't handle it well, but if he didn't say anything, the Knicks didn't handle it well at all either. As bad as things might feel and seem right now for a lot of Detroit teams.
There you go.
I'm new here.
I like it.
That's a mess. The Knicks organization is a mess.
Well, they've been a mess for a long time.
That's nothing new.
All due respect to Isaiah Thomas.
But isn't this even worse? Like you've got Phil Jackson, who runs the team, slamming his best player on Twitter. He didn't send out tweets for months, and now he's sending out tweets and liking tweets that are ripping Carmelo Anthony.
I don't know if it's worse now or if it's just the latest in a long saga of what's going on with the Knicks. I find it odd that here comes Phil Jackson back to the fold because he played with the Knicks in his career, and he's supposed to be the savior because of what he did in Chicago, what he did with the Lakers, winning all the championships. And it's the same old, same old. It's still an unmitigated mess. It's awful in New York. And I don't know what Phil is doing with this whole Carmelo Anthony bit, how he's absolutely sabotaging the opportunity to trade him. Mm-hmm. Because if you're saying he doesn't have the will to win necessary, well, what team in the right mind wants to take that on? If Phil Jackson, who clearly knows what it takes to be an NBA champion, if he's saying that Carmelo doesn't have it, why am I going to trade for Carmelo? I mean, if Phil Jackson calls you up, you ignore that call. That's like it may as well, be somebody calling you from somewhere in Africa saying that they've got that they work for the prince and that they want to give you $1 billion if you just give them your bank account.
I do think, how can the Pistons take advantage of this situation? Because that's what I always think.
Sure.
How can I benefit from this? But 248-539-9797. The question is, have you ever seen anybody thrown out of a game? Have you ever, and why? Why did they get thrown out? Unruly fan behavior, yelling something, wouldn't let up on some player, anything. Did you ever see anybody get tossed out of a game?
I did see it when I was a kid. I was at a Tigers game. I was at the infamous doubleheader game at Tiger Stadium where the next day they end up closing down the bleachers for the summer.
Yeah.
We were at that game. I was there with my dad and my brother, and we were sitting in the bleachers, and there was a dude that was completely unruly in between games and was yelling and cussing and the whole bit, and a giant police officer came over. I mean, he was probably 6'4", but at the time I thought he was like 7 feet tall because I was like 10 years old. And he comes over, and they grabbed him in a hurry and got him out, and he's kicking and screaming and the whole bit and trying to resist arrest, and it just didn't matter because the cop was giant. He grabbed a hold of him, and then somebody else came over and took his legs, and they got him out of there.
Okay, I'm asking you to analyze this as a 10-year-old because you were 10.
Yes.
Did he deserve it?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, without a yeah, absolutely.
So
he deserved it.
a 10-year-old Gator was fully aware how much he deserved it.
Yeah, there's only so much abuse you can give somebody before they say enough.
Well, who was he abusing?
I think he was, at the time, there was an usher that was there because I think the usher told him to stop.
Pipe down?
Yeah, and he just wouldn't. I mean, it was throughout the whole first game, the doubleheader, the guy was obnoxious as hell. And then because of the break, he thought, well, this is my opportunity now where I can really let this guy have it. What's he going to do, kick me out of the game? The game's over. We're waiting for the second game. Well, yeah, dumbass, you can get kicked out of the second game before it even starts. So it was fantastic.
All right, 248-539-9797. When have you seen somebody thrown out? What did they do, and did they deserve it? Or was it ever you? These are always tough because you don't know if anybody's going to admit to it. Maybe you didn't deserve it. Oakley, of course, is screaming from mountaintops that he didn't deserve it last night in the Knicks game and saying, I didn't say anything, I wasn't talking. They just came up and approached me.
Isn't that what everybody's going to say when they get kicked out? I didn't do anything.
That's what everybody always
But I didn't say anything. I was just watching the game, minding my own business. What did I do?
Right.
I've seen enough Cops.
What do you mean?
Episode of Cops.
Oh, right.
You know, where you end up sweating.
TV show, sure. 248-539-9797, shirt off.
No, why are you so sweaty? I was watching Cops.
Let's go to Neil and Troy on 97.1 A Ticket. Hi, Neil.
Hey, guys, how you doing?
Good.
Back in the 70s, the Tigers were playing the Senators. Frank Howard was their first baseman at the time. If you recall, it was a giant of a man. I was sitting at the first base side, apparently had too many beers, and for whatever reason decided to take one of those big pretzels, start lopping pieces off, dipping them in my beer, and throwing them at Frank Howard. It wasn't long before a couple of fans came to me and attacked me. Fortunately, I was wearing a cast on my arm that I had broke prior to that, and I was escorted out by the police. They actually took me downstairs into a holding cell, and I was dressed in a three-piece suit and looked really good, and they couldn't quite figure out what the hell I was doing. And they asked me if I had a gun, which I said no. And then they said, would I mind watching the game out on the street for the remainder, which I said sure, and they escorted me out.
So you said they couldn't figure out what you were doing. Have you ever figured out what the hell you were doing, Neil?
Well, put it this way, I stopped drinking shortly thereafter.
Okay. All right.
Well, good.
Good self-scout right there.
There it is.
All right. Thanks, guys.
248-539-9797. Have you ever been thrown out of a game? Did you ever go all Charles Oakley and get yourself removed? Or did you ever see anybody get removed? I watched a girl get carried out because she refused to stop showing her boobs. That's from Robin Sterling Heights.
Oh.
I mean, that's just ridiculous.
Good to get thrown out for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to know what game this was at. Like, what sport, what team?
How many guys followed her out?
Right. I was at a concert, was it the Van Halen concert a couple of years ago, and there was a woman who was in the front row that was just kept flashing the band. And people around her, for the most part, didn't care. But there was somebody who did care because they had kids with them. And, boy, were they upset with the ushers for letting that persist. And finally, the ushers had to go over and tell her, ma'am, please stop it. There are children around you.
You remember the flashing story with me doing the show?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. You could have used a
That was
intervention there.
not a great moment for me.
Or anybody around you.
No, that was the whole thing. Is boy, did the crowd turn on me. We'll get to that story a little bit later on. 248-539-9797. I was at a youth football game. Guess where this is going? Two drunk dads got in a fight and fell down in the bleachers. They were both rolling down the hill, the bleachers still punching each other. Obviously, they got tossed.
Surprised it wasn't a hockey game.
My experience, to go for the grand generalization, having watched my kids participate in all kinds of sports and observed all kinds of parents, my experience was that the hockey parents were the craziest.
And this is before your eldest was even 12.
Yep. And I've seen a lot of crazy behavior from parents at kids' sporting events, but hockey has stood out, especially when it comes to the parents of the Toledo Cherokee. Good Lord, those people were crazy.
Why you got to single one person out?
I'm singling out their fans, the parents of those team. It wasn't just one person; it was a bunch.
I said Toledo Cherokee. I thought it was just one guy.
No, that was the name of the team, right?
Gotcha.
Yeah. All right. Bill in Ann Arbor, you're on 97 on the ticket. Hi, Bill.
Hey guys, how you doing? Thanks for the call.
Sure.
Got
Us?
2 quick stories. I grew up in the Philadelphia area.
Yep.
I went to a lot of Eagle games as a kid, and what was a regular thing in the early 90s was that if you wore an opposing jersey to an Eagles game up at like the 700 level, which was the cheap seats, when the Eagle fans got upset, they would attack you. And it got so bad in Philadelphia that the Eagles had to have undercover cops wearing opposing road jerseys to arrest people during these games. That's how nuts the Eagle fans got.
So the cops in Philadelphia would wear like a Cowboys jersey and arrest Eagle fans who would attack them?
The cop would wear a Cowboy jersey waiting for an Eagle fan to attack somebody else wearing a Cowboy jersey, and then the undercover would arrest the fan that attacked the innocent Cowboy fan. That was the hypothetical.
Or Santa Claus.
Or Santa Claus.
Right.
The one other memory I got, and I'll let you guys go, is when Michael Irvin got hurt against the Eagles, I think it was like 95. It was the last game of his career. They didn't know if the guy was dead. It was horrible. They had to pull him off on the stretcher. He was still for a few minutes. I remember not only the Eagle fans, but the security officers at the vet were cheering, hoping he was dead. I remember my aunt had me at the game with this horrified look on her face, but that's the Philadelphia culture. Thanks for the call, guys.
Thank you for calling. What was that accent? That didn't even sound like a Philly accent.
That's more like a Baltimore, but it's just as
I mean,
bad.
they're right there. 97 won the ticket. 97